What challenges does cyber warfare pose to IHL definitions? Imagine a world where conflicts are fought not just with guns and bombs but through lines of code and digital attacks. This is the reality of cyber warfare, and it pushes the boundaries of what International Humanitarian Law, or IHL, can handle. IHL is meant to protect people and limit the effects of armed conflicts. It relies on clear ideas like what counts as an armed conflict, what is an attack, and who is a civilian or combatant. These ideas were created when wars were fought with physical weapons. But in cyber warfare, things are much less clear. One big challenge is figuring out when a cyber operation counts as an armed conflict. IHL applies only during armed conflicts, which usually means fighting between states or organized armed groups. But cyber operations can be sneaky. For example, if a cyber attack disrupts a country's power grid but causes no physical damage or loss of life, is that enough to say there is an armed conflict? Sometimes it is hard to tell. This makes it tricky to know when IHL protections should start. Another issue is what counts as an attack in cyberspace. In traditional war, an attack might be bombing a building or shelling a town. In cyber warfare, an attack could be spreading malware, launching a denial-of-service attack, or hacking into critical systems. There is debate about whether these actions are really attacks under IHL. If no physical harm happens, some argue it might not even qualify as an attack. This uncertainty makes it hard to decide when IHL rules apply. The principle of distinction is also tested in cyber warfare. This principle says parties must tell apart civilians from soldiers and civilian objects from military targets. But in cyberspace, infrastructure is often linked. For example, a cyber attack on a military communication network might also affect hospitals, banks, or homes. This makes it difficult to target only military objectives without risking harm to civilians. Protecting civilians is a core part of IHL. Civilians should not be attacked unless they are directly involved in hostilities. But in cyber conflicts, civilians can be involved in cyber operations too. Private companies might help the military or be recruited for cyber tasks. This blurs the line between civilians and fighters. It raises questions about who is protected and who can be targeted. Attribution is another big challenge. In traditional warfare, it is usually clear who launched an attack. In cyber warfare, attackers can hide their identities or use intermediaries. This makes it hard to find out who is responsible. Without knowing who is behind an attack, holding violators accountable becomes very difficult. Finally, cyber operations can have effects that spread across borders very quickly. An attack in one country might disrupt infrastructure in many other countries. This raises questions about how IHL applies across different nations and whether it can keep up with the fast pace of digital conflicts. In summary, cyber warfare challenges many core ideas of international humanitarian law. The unclear thresholds for armed conflict, the difficulty in defining attacks, the interconnectedness of civilian and military targets, the involvement of civilians, and the problem of attribution all make applying IHL in cyberspace complicated. These issues show the need for new rules or clearer guidance to ensure civilians are protected and the principles of IHL are respected in the digital age.